Welcome back, friends and family, to another episode of the Backdoor Cut Show, brought to you by the Barn Burner Podcast Network. Also, you can read our stuff at the-barnburner.com and also listen to us on Dash Radio's Nothing But Net channel. Thanks for being here with us tonight on this Sunday or whenever you hear this show. You have me, Zach, Mason, and Sam, and today we're going to talk some Taylor Jenkins, kind of discuss our opinions of how he did this year. We're going to talk the dates for the potential start dates for the NBA in this upcoming season. Will it be delayed, or how long will it be delayed? And then also we're going to do a little round robin for the top three of the 2020 NBA draft. Sam, how you doing?
I'm good, man. Had a good week. The weekend was short. Just sold my couch on Facebook Marketplace today because we got new furniture coming in. So that's always a fascinating experience, fielding all these inquiries and basically haggling on Facebook Messenger. But we got furniture coming in this week. And the thing about the ordering Macy's furniture is there's apparently been like a shortage of furniture because there's been a shortage of lumber. So everything got pushed back. So our furniture didn't come in for like a month late. But that's a first world problem. But anyway, we have an empty ass living room and it's really weird. So I think I'm going to bring in some camping chairs and sit in those. But like we have 3 days without a couch, and I'll say that's like a weird thing to not have. And I don't know if I've ever gone like days without having a couch in my living room.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think I've been there. It's going to feel like you're living back in college where you like wait until someone can donate a couch to you, or you're just like in this no man's land of furniture. Like you just moved out of your parents or out of your dorm room or something, and you have to like actually furnish it yourself. That's like that no man's land. I don't really know what to do in that situation. So you got the camping chairs and like the coolers and stuff that you're sitting on, but I don't
usually
think
we'd be the one buying the couch, on Facebook Marketplace. And most of my houses, we bought the secondhand furniture. This was brand new, delivered. And so it's like we're in this weird spot. But it was nice to get a little money for it, save for the honeymoon fund. Don't know where we're going to go. Kind of depends on this, this pandemic that's going on. But we're just like stuffing away in a drawer and busted out to buy pina coladas if we're in a tropical destination. Mason, what's going on with you, Mason?
Hey, man, I'm just thinking I can relate to not having a couch. When my wife and I first moved to California, we had an air mattress as a couch for several months because she had one specific couch that we had to get. And, like Sam is experiencing, it was on back order and it took months and it turned into almost a year that we went without a couch. And my back is still suffering from it. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. She was so specific. And I was like, we can just get a cheap one and then toss it out when, this one's available. But she was not having it. And, as you know, we don't get much say in the decisions anymore. So it is what it is. We made it work. It was a great place to take a nap. I'll tell you that.
So you were on an air mattress, and I've lived in your living room before on an air mattress. So I've sat on an air mattress with my back to the wall before, using it as an impromptu couch. And I'll tell you, not the most comfortable or ergonomically satisfying thing to do.
Yeah, we had another chair, luckily, but rough times for the ergs.
Yeah, man, that's and I'm like 31 now, so every little injury, I'm like going on the disabled list for a while. Like it's not like I'm just bouncing back. It's tough. So I'm thinking about that now. I'm not sitting in these camping chairs a lot. I think I'll watch a lot less TV. Might walk around the neighborhood a little more. Could end up being a nice couple days for old Sam.
So the question is, say you just played a 6-game series and you're feeling how you feel. How soon could you return to not sitting on a couch again?
This has now become a baseball / furniture metaphor that I'm ill prepared to come up with a rapid fire response. So I'm just going to say 2 days.
I was more or less trying to segue into the NBA potentially starting in December 22nd, but
that's good.
That didn't land, I suppose.
Well, for some reason I thought like a 6-game series. I was like thinking about baseball, maybe because that was the most recent thing I watched. And you're right, it could have very easily been basketball. I'm sorry I missed that. Okay. Well, let's start though, rather than the scheduling. We are of course a Grizzlies centric podcast, and we are going to talk NBA at large at some point. But one thing we haven't done yet as a Grizzlies podcast is, and we've done it kind of in text and just amongst ourselves, but not on the air, Let's talk about the Grizzlies head coach, Taylor Jenkins, first season under his belt, first season as a head coach in general as well. Spent a time with the Spurs, kind of interning, then entered the on basketball ops and business ops side, then kind of entered the coaching realm. Was a kind of a protege under Pop for a while, then ultimately went over to work for Budenholzer in Atlanta, and followed Budenholzer to over to the Bucks in Milwaukee, and has sort of just bounced around. Is kind of the archetype of the analytics, a little bit of the let me work with the front office and not buck heads because I don't have any sort of like previous resume. He of course interned and coached with a lot of coaches that are known as good coaches in the league, but was sort of a not splashy but intelligent hire, I would say, when it first happened. And I don't think anyone disagreed with it. But now we've got, a season under our belts. What would you give Taylor Jenkins, Zach, on a letter grade scale, plus or minus, for his efforts this season leading the Grizzlies?
I would say somewhere between. I'll give him a B plus. There was I didn't feel like there was too many red flags. Yeah, we had some issues working some guys into the rotation, like Josh Jackson, and then we decided not to play them. I don't know if there's something going on behind the scenes there, and that played into that a lot. But if you think about more of like a culture piece or a mindset of what he set out to do at the beginning of the season, saying, we're going to conform, we're going to be the team that pushes the pace, that shoots a lot of threes. I think that we definitely moved in that direction a lot. Our pace increased dramatically since last year, and offensive rating increased a little bit. Our defense, not so much. Having a younger team kind of hurt us there, but he really gave guys the green light to shoot, and you could see that in Crowder. I think that's probably like the number one example of someone who he's like, just shoot it whenever you can, whenever you think you're open, whenever you're anywhere near being open. And he never discouraged that. He was always continue to do that. The shots will fall. We'll get there eventually. It wasn't pretty at first, and there were some spurts that were really ugly with that because you can crash like 12 threes and make 2 of them. You're not going to win many games like that. But just really getting the mindset to everyone, especially the younger guys, that it's okay to do that, and that that's how we want to play in the future. And we have to start somewhere, even if it's not working so well at the beginning. So I think that was one thing he really stuck with. Plus, it seems like he really has the guys' backs in a lot of respects. If you just listen to him talk, he really seems to have like strong beliefs in how he wants his team to be run. And he sticks to those. He backs his guys. And I think that's really important, especially for those young players. And he's young. He's in his mid-30s or something like that. I don't remember off the top of my head his age, but
yeah, like late 30s.
Yeah. So he's not a super old guy, so he's able to relate, pretty closely, as close as he can, to these guys and doing his best job there. So I felt like it was for someone that, unless you're really in tune with basketball, coaching trees and everything, which I assume most people didn't know that much about Taylor Jenkins until he became our head coach, at least most Grizzlies fans, including myself. Then you have to be pretty pleased with, the outcome of the season for the most part, I think.
Yeah, we knew him before he got to the Grizzlies as the coach that was on the Bucks bench who went viral for like essentially doing like foot fires and keeping the guys from running onto the court, of which no one actually tried to run the court. So he ended up just kind of like shuffling back and forth with no urgency while nothing happened, which was really funny. Mason, I feel like you're over here. You're a tough grader. I think you'll be tough but fair. But I think you're the college professor that's going to not bump you up from a minus to a even A to help your GPA. So let me hear your grade of Taylor Jenkins for this season.
Well, like you guys have already hit on, coming into this season, it was a complete unknown what Taylor Jenkins would bring to this team, bring to this city, bring to this franchise as a whole. And I got to say, overall, we should be feeling pretty good about the hire that was made last offseason based on the results we saw this year. The top priority for this season was getting Ja Morant comfortable in the NBA And then the second priority was getting him and Jaron acclimated to how Taylor Jenkins and this team want to play moving forward. And like Zach hit on with Jay Crowder firing up shots, as well as our very own Dylan Brooks. And then later, once we got into the bubble, Grayson Allen kind of assumed that role. Solomon Hill wasn't scared to shoot it. We even saw Valanciunas get some shots. And we saw Jaron shooting, more threes than any 7-footer in the history of the game. So
yeah,
I think from the standpoint of coming in, laying the template for how he wants to play moving forward, although I disagreed with it early on when we were sucking, we couldn't make any shots. I still don't think that it was in the best interest of the team for this season. And maybe we could have snuck into the playoffs if, we had tailored our early game plans more to fit, go through JV a little more than what we were doing. But I didn't really care about making the playoffs until we got into the race. And that was just like a plus of the season. So just coming in, setting that tempo, I think he really had a good job. One thing that irked the shit out of me was his refusal to challenge calls. I mean, it was just time and time again. There's so many times it's like, what the hell? You might as well challenge it. You're going to lose this timeout that you're probably not going to use anyway. So that's probably my biggest knock on him. And then after seeing a coach like Dave Yeager, who just consistently draws up awesome plays out of timeouts, sideline inbounds plays and things like that, I didn't think Jenkins and his staff showed a whole lot from that standpoint. But again, it's a young team, and maybe you can't throw too much at them on the fly. And when a coach is in the huddle drawing up the play, 9 times out of 10, that play doesn't get ran exactly like it was drawn up in the huddle. So especially with the young team, guys like Dylan Brooks and, guys who are not going to maybe listen because they're trying so hard to win and they think they know how to win. But just at this stage of their career, they probably don't. So they're fucking up some plays here and there. But all in all, yeah, I'm not mad at the B+. I'll probably, just because Sam kind of in the intro labeled me a tough grader, I'll just give him a B. But all in all, I'm happy with Taylor Jenkins, excited about the future. And I mean, that's not to say these next 2-3 years he won't flame the fuck out. But based on one season, solid job.
So do you think he overachieved, underachieved, or properly achieved with this past season?
Oh, overachieved, no doubt. I mean, who could have expected us to be in the play-in game? No one, because there was no play-in game scheduled in the preseason.
Trick question.
You just feel like it's white Scrooge then.
But just to be in, the 9th or 8th position, fighting for a playoff spot at the end of the year, you can't do anything but take your hat off and, say that was a damn good job. And it was shown in him getting some votes for Coach of the Year. No first place votes, but his peers did recognize the job he did and the job this franchise did as a whole on this season, who, when we came in, we were expecting to beat the under in the Vegas win totals, which was like less than 30. So hell yeah, they definitely overachieved.
The win total was 27.5, and the Grizzlies ended up at 34 wins, and that was with 9 less games than would have happened, which assuredly they would have won a couple more, just even the ratio of their win percentage. So yeah, I mean, they definitely overachieved. He definitely, if you count wins and losses, is like kind of the ultimate success or failure of a season. That's like that's kind of how many questions did you get right, the very basic grade. So I think that's right. I'm honestly going to give him a B-. Mason hit on a couple things that really bugged me. I think that anyone that's unwilling to use the tools given to them for whatever reason is illogical and kind of doesn't make sense to me. Seems like the type of guy that would strategically use those.
Like such a smart guy, right? Like
it's bizarre, which got me thinking, okay, he surely thinks there's a reason not to do it then. He thinks there is a reason. He specifically has a reason why he's purposely not doing it, because he was drastically the smallest challenger of the season amongst all NBA coaches. And when I say drastically, I mean the Nick Nurse challenged 18 times. And then he was 3. I mean, it was just microscopic, and you saw the other coaches. And in fact, most of the coaches that are thought of as the best coaches in the league were at the top of that list. And I don't think that it's a direct causation thing, but it's basically the coaches using the tools that are given to them. And this segues me with my greatest issue with Taylor Jenkins is I don't know. I think he has the respect of his peers. I think he has the respect of his players for now. I think that a lot of what he did was because John Jaron got better than anyone thought they would. Maybe John didn't get better, but he was better. And Jaron took a leap that no one thought he would as kind of like a potentially 20-plus per game scorer, which no one thought was going to be his perk. In fact, I actually read his draft profile tonight because I was looking at this year's draft and clicked on 2018 because I was like, this will be funny to read Luka's thing and like everyone's draft profile. And Jaron's was basically like, Factors is basically a 3-and-D center, not a major scorer, not a big time scorer, can make a couple threes, but his big impact is going to be on defense. And I was like, that's really interesting. They did hit on his foul thing. Even then, apparently he was a horrible fouler in college, and they talked about it. But anyway, I think that that was part of it. I think that the win total was mostly due to Ja being like automatically a top 10 point guard, arguably in the league as a rookie. But to me, like, I don't think he has the respect of the officials, and that might just be him being like a no name. But in order to get that, I have this theory that you have to be an asshole. And I think the best coaches in the leagues are total assholes in their own way to the officials, and they demand respect, and they also demand respect to their players. We saw Fizz give that ridiculous speech that honestly fired everyone up. They're not going to rook us. I think the Grizzlies get rooked anyway a lot more than some franchises, given just their small marketness. That might be just me as a fan. And I think that it's going to require a coach to really call the officials out and keep them honest when, Ja's not getting the calls that the other point guards are getting just because he's a rookie. And I don't think he excels as that. In fact, he very rarely got a technical. He very rarely ever chatted to the officials. And when he did, he kind of did it in like a little bit too of a nice guy attitude where I think he could get waved off. I'm saying all this to say he kind of strikes me as a beta a little bit in a profession made of mostly alphas. And that he seems like he'd be a great assistant and has been, but I don't know if he's a good in the head chair. Now, maybe he hires someone to be the bulldog, but I just don't ever see him growing into that role. And that's something that really worries me when you need a guy that fights for your guys and eventually gets them the calls that they deserve. So, and to me, that's what I think he's not fouling, challenging the calls. I think he wants to be extraordinarily nice to the officials and maybe go the nice guy route, but that just doesn't work in this league when on the other side of the bench, you got Doc Rivers barking the whole game. You got Nick Nurse pleading the whole game. Even Brad Stevens has his own thing where he kind of does the nice guy thing. And I don't know if that works. Brad Stevens is kind of falling a little bit, I think, in people's opinions. All this to say, all the positives you said, I retweet. But I don't know. Like, I'm a little bit worried about that. I don't think you can change the guy's personality. But I think his out of timeouts were good. That's something I always notice. Zach always – anytime we watch the game together, I always try to mention if they score out of a timeout or if the play was decent. I always say, oh, we scored out of a timeout, or that looked like a good play. Maybe it got blown up, but it looked like I could see what they were trying to do. And I did notice that was good. So I think all of the other factors, win total, synergy with the front office. Obviously they really picked him after a long search and seemed to personally get along with them. Wex and Kleiman and him seem to get along on a personal level and almost kind of like a business strategy level. They're kind of all business guys at heart that are kind of running this as a small business, which is what it is. But that's the approach they seem to be taking. Anyway, I'll look to see what happens going forward. What's a successful season look like for Taylor Jenkins next season, assuming no moves are made?
Well, first, let me hit on a couple other negatives that we kind of glossed over. He refused to take Kyle Anderson out of the starting lineup all season. And that drove me crazy. And then he kind of refused to make defensive changes throughout the games, especially with Valanciunas playing the drop defense. If you had someone who could score in that mid-range game, that person could get 40 points on us because we weren't going to make the adjustment to come up on that screen closer to the three-point line. We're just giving them jump shots at the free throw line. And then, offensively, sometimes we kind of got bogged down and continued to play the jacket up game where maybe we should have slowed it down and started trying to play through Valanciunas a little more, just kind of exercising the offensive tools that we have. So just a few more negatives before we move on. Zach, you can answer that question about successful season for next year.
Successful season for next year. So this year, the guys won 34 games on a limited schedule.
75, 75, or sorry, 73 or something.
Yeah, 73 it looks like. So I would say probably in the like 38 to 40 range, I think would be this is obviously like based on an 82 game schedule, which not for sure if that's what we're going to get. So that kind of percentage hovering around that 500 mark at the end of the season, I think is where you like to see Memphis taking at least a half step up, and could be up to like a 44, 45 game if we wins, if I think the season goes really how you'd like to see it. So not like I'm not going to cast some huge bar for the team to get over next season to say like, hey, things are on the right track. As long as I can see a little bit of progress in that right direction, then I think that's what would be successful to me. Tough to say that after, we blew the projections out of the water for this year. That goes back to Ja. Now we know or have a pretty good idea of how good Ja actually is. So we should be able to base a lot of the team around that. The Winslow piece is still a big wild card. Never seen him play with Memphis, so it could come out and be amazing and be 5 games right there just because we have a huge gaping hole that he's able to fill, or he could not necessarily work out so much. Maybe be someone that comes off the bench and is only worth a couple extra wins to the team. But I think that's kind of the range that I'm looking for next season.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Any other thoughts on Taylor Jenkins before we move on to the new jerseys we saw?
No,
I'm good on Jenkins.
The new city jerseys dropped, and they mimic the 2001 first season in Memphis when the young Jason Williams, Pau Gasol Grizzlies entered the Memphis Pyramid at that time and began their period here in Memphis. This is, of course, the 20th anniversary of the team making its move to Memphis, which is hence the jerseys coming out. They are the kind of plain Memphis block font, Memphis across the jerseys, with using the same colors as the Vancouver Grizzlies. They still have the teal in there with a really dark blue. There's some even I seen red or orange in the jerseys as well. They're pretty clean looking. They're not really flashy, but I've always liked them for whatever reason. It might just be pure nostalgia. They dropped with a Morant jersey. We saw Ja retweeted it and said they look cold as hell, which is really all I care about is if the players like them, because then they tend to just enjoy playing in them, and that helps a young team. So what do we think of the new city jerseys? Mason, is this a pro? Do you think it's better than the Vancouver jerseys, or are you feeling they're lackluster?
No, I mean, I love these jerseys. I've got a few in my closet right now. That's one of I think I like them more than the Vancouver, just simply because they say Memphis across the chest.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they're one of our top 2 or 3 jerseys of all time.
Zach,
I think I like the teal ones better just because they're more like retro feeling, and they're more flashy and they stick out to people. I think Memphis fans can appreciate these black ones more so than the broader NBA community, but they're just very nostalgic. They're very clean, and I mean I really like them. We're not trying to do something super out of the box, for this rendition. Kind of going with something that we know, a oldie but a goodie, and I mean I'm excited to bring them around again.
I like them too. I think that we've got a jersey seller in John Morant. We saw he was a top 15 jersey seller, I think, nationally, behind the names like Kyrie Irving and Damian Lillard in terms of point guards. So which is fucking insane if you really think about it. I know we've mentioned it before, but that is like honestly insane to have a rookie do that in a market like Memphis. I think that this jersey is going to sell like hotcakes when it eventually goes live on the NBA interwebs and in the store too.
Yeah, hopefully Nike makes enough Ja jerseys. With the Vancouver ones, it was a struggle to find Ja jerseys. So hopefully they realize that he's going to sell and they prepare adequately. But while we're on the jerseys, like out of all the Grizzlies jerseys, what is your favorite? Is it that Vancouver one? We've had the Memphis Sounds, the MLK, the black sleeved ones, the I Am a Man jerseys that were white, the Tams. the green and yellow ones. So what's your favorite? I know everybody loved the Sounds. I mean, just because they were so clean and 70s looking.
Yeah, Yeah, very, very like ABA looking.
Yeah, that's the
and
red
too.
jerseys with the
Yeah.
white bubble letters.
I'm going to take a left turn here, but I always liked the Tams jerseys. I remember distinctly a picture of Rudy Gay dunking the ball in the Tams, and I thought they were like just different, and they really reminded me of ABA. It looked like a team that like didn't even really belong in the NBA was playing, and at that point, maybe our personnel was kind of the same. Probably maybe wasn't up to snuff, but I liked them. I like green and yellow. Like had a John Deere look to it. I think I had like a John Deere trucker hat in high school at that point. So just bear with me there.
Man, those jerseys were awful.
Hey, man, that's just like
in
your
high
opinion,
school
man.
colors.
Yeah.
How about you, Zach?
I think I'm trying to pull up some right now to jog my memory. That outside of the ones that you mentioned, I mean the teal ones. I think that's
the teal
got to
ones
be
are just
first
great.
place.
Yeah.
First place for me at this point. Some of the newer ones, like the all whites and the all Beale Street blue we have, they're pretty whatever. There's nothing super fancy to them. Oddly enough, I really like what year was it? 2 years ago, the wrestling ones, the ones that look just like the Pacers, like they just ripped off
Those
the
gray
Pacers.
ones.
Yeah, I like those a pretty good amount, even after I realized that they look just like the Pacers uniforms.
Yeah. Then we also had the Memphis Pros that were navy and red. Those were some good ones. So
What do you like, Mason?
I like the Vancouver and the 20th anniversary Memphis ones that we're going back to, as well as the Sounds.
Yeah.
The sleeved MLK jerseys with the black and had the wreath right there on the neckline. Those were cool too. I wish they weren't sleeved, and I wish Nike made them. So
yeah, I've got a Mike Conley one of those. I thought they were cool. The Eye and the Man ones were cool too. Just really clean, black and white, a little bit Brooklyn Netsy, but so clean that it didn't even steer into that. So I agree that we've had a lot of good jerseys. I mean, I've been very happy with what the Grizzlies has done. I don't know who decides that or who designs them. Obviously, now we're doing throwbacks. That's easy, but in the interim, they had to come up with shit.
It's a partnership between the Grizzlies creative team and the league and Adidas or Nike. So it's kind of collaborative. The Grizzlies team doesn't get to take it and run with it, but they do get to give the inspirational ideas and the reasons for, like the I Am a Man. Like I'm sure they fed that to them, and then the final design was from Nike. Some other teams dropped some jerseys. Speaking of the Nets, I know they had one that I saw floating around Twitter that I thought was terrible. And then the Pelicans had one that I thought was just completely terrible as well. I mean, New Orleans is a city with so much culture, and just like they could have done anything with it. Like you got the Mardi Gras colors, and sure, maybe it gets played out, but they haven't even really made a good Mardi Gras jersey yet.
No, they have a lot of opportunities. I haven't seen another jersey that I loved. I like the Nets ones actually, but I get how you wouldn't. I didn't see any ones I loved, and I think unless Zach has a jersey he wants to shout out, we can move into the upcoming dates that we have. We have dates that have been proposed by the NBA. We have somewhat of an idea of what this might look like going into next season with the weird middle of October finals finish. For the past couple of weeks, beginning on October 16th, teams were conducting in-person interviews with draft prospects. That goes until the middle of this month, shortly before the draft. We've seen Zoom interviews. Some guys have been able to go to the facilities, work out. Some workouts have been digital. It's been a whole weird process, but the teams have been basically doing all this shit for many months now, especially these teams that are picking high, because obviously they were not in the bubble. So they've been doing a 9 or 10 month level of analysis. A lot of people are worried that it's going to be paralysis by analysis, and we're going to have teams fuck up a lot because they're overthinking. And I don't know what to say about that, but that's just been an interesting wrinkle here. November 18th, 2020 NBA draft moved from obviously June when it usually is. Free agency starting November 20th, 2 days after that. So like fucking tuck your dick in and get running, man. Because like these front offices are going to be working their asses off over the holidays, and in a time where they would normally just kind of be kicking off the beginning of a season and not doing a whole lot in terms of the kind of the flow of a season. And then the December 1 is the proposed start date to begin training camps for the upcoming season. And December 22nd is proposed opening night for the 2021 season. The NBA has identified that date because for mostly they don't think that next season they're ever really going to have fans. They think that next season is basically a wash, and what they've circled is the 21-22 season, where they could theoretically get back where they want to be starting the season when they typically would, maybe a little later, to not compete with football as much. They're tinkering with that, but essentially getting back to a somewhat of a norm. But just starting this season in order to recoup the media rights stuff, which is a bulk of their income as well. If they can't have fans, they want to make sure they recoup all of their media contract revenue. So that was the notion of starting sooner. Originally, people were talking MLK Day, people were talking March, but those were premised on the notion of getting people back in stands. But now, because no one knows anything about when this is going to be resolved, and if anyone says they do, then they're lying to you, basically until there's a vaccine that's mass produced. I don't know if we'll see fans in the stadium for a while. What do you guys think of? I know that Mason is skeptical about this December 22nd start date. Now, of course, it's just proposed by the league, has to pass muster by the NBA Players Association, with Michelle Roberts helming that. And, essentially it becomes a collaborative discussion between the players represented by Michelle Roberts and their interests, and then Adam Silver and the league itself. And, it's kind of like a court process, really, figuring out what will happen. But you seem to think that won't happen and it'll be a later date. Why do you think that?
Well, I just think all the dates you just ran through, it's such a rush. It's going to be tough to, right after the draft, go into free agency. And sure, the teams have had plenty of time, but, it's not unheard of that people will make mistakes that they're going to regret and set their franchises back for, several years, which is not a good thing across the board for the NBA. And then I feel like you don't want to go against football anyway. So starting in December, you're going against football for basically 2 months, or the rest of December, some of February, and then all of January. Whereas if you push it back to January, one, it gives the players who went long in the bubble more of an off season. I know, there's 8 teams who haven't played since March or whatever, but that's their fault. So you give the players more time to rest. You get more TV slots that aren't competing with football. And then you have that break before baseball gets started in April, usually. And then you're going against regular season baseball and if you can finish by August, that's kind of when postseason baseball starts. So you can still dominate the summer for the most part, like you normally do. And then if you finish in August, you can take the rest of August, September, some of October, then mid to late October, you start your training camp. Then for the 21-22 season, you get started mid-November, early November. You already talked about pushing that date back some to not compete with football as much as possible. So I just think that makes more sense. But I do understand it's a bargaining thing, and the 72 games fulfills local TV requirements. So that is why the NBA is aiming for that, because it is a significant amount of money. Like, I want to say it's just shy of $1 billion.
Yep.
In total player salary. So at the end of the day, if the owners and the league play hardball, which they might, but typically that's not how the NBA works. Usually they're pretty amicable on both sides, and we can get to a resolutions that is best for both parties. And of course, fulfilling that TV contract will be best for both parties. So it's just going to be a matter of if, the league thinks that they can still accomplish what they want to accomplish if they move it back, the start date back into January, which I think there's a way to do that. And in the long run, I think it might still benefit the league because of less competition with football.
Yeah, I think their real goal is to end the season kind of when they normally end it, in June, and truly get back on the exact same schedule. And then what you said, yeah, you could push it back into August, and that's true. But if they do
Olympics to compete with
the Olympics is like a thing that everyone brings up. I don't know how much that anyone actually cares about that. I don't know. It's definitely something though, and it's something that you're competing against. Also, that's something that you're like your MVP, 2-time MVP of the league, is a huge factor in that, and also likes to play for his country in that. And Luka too. So like whatever. Like,
hey, the Bucks gonna be out of playoffs anyway.
There you go. So he used that as a time to throw a little shade at my boy Giannis. I obviously, as a basketball fan, the sooner the better. I mean, that's me selfishly as a consumer of this, and I will say that I have little to no empathy with with starting then as opposed to a month later in terms of player time off, unless someone could show me that it's like medically ridiculous to do that. I think that it is going to suck for the players that played late in terms of they won't have as much vacation time, and that stinks, and they won't be able to go to wherever they go, but that stinks. And we're in a pandemic and people have had to make sacrifices. And if it makes sense for the league at large, because I don't know if there's anyone except for those two teams that's going to complain as much about how late they played. And that makes sense. But one of those teams has LeBron James on it. He's one of the loudest guys in the NBA for obvious reasons. And he honestly rallies a lot of the NBA. So if he says we're not going to play, we can see what happens. But I think a lot of guys probably do want to start earlier and just kind of get back on some sense of normalcy. Not only those 8 teams, but think about the Grizzlies who haven't played now for, 3 months. And I mean, we even saw some of the guys tweeting like that start date they were excited about. So I think they're anxious to play. And I don't even know how the Heat feel about it, but they got a bunch of young legs. So we'll see. But I'm not really like opposed to anything, particularly if there's reasoned discussion about it. But I don't think that we're going to see like a ton of injuries suddenly because they start on December 22nd instead of January 21st. But I don't know that. I'm not a sports professional.
Well, it's not the start date. It's how you fit the games within the schedule. There's going to be a lot more back-to-backs, maybe 4 games in 5 nights, which goes against everything the NBA has worked towards. So, it's starting.
Well, I thought that that's why they wanted to start on the 22nd, a month earlier than that January date, and still with the purpose of ending in June, so that way they could have this sufficient space. Because if they started on January and wanted to end when they planned to end before the Olympics, then that's what would create the crazy amount of games in a small amount of time. So start, because they really seem to want to end at that time. That's kind of like the consistent desire. And the start date's been kind of like, well, we don't know. So that's the thing, is that like maybe that
I think
could
if they
end up being a
do
problem.
start early, they're going to really have to relax on the like player rest rules. Last year was pretty strict where
They're pretty damn relaxed, man.
Yeah, you can get fined if you like your guy sits while he's on the road instead of it, and you could have sat him when you were at home. All that kind of load management stuff. I think they're going to pretty much have to throw all that out the window and say like, you got to take care of your players in whatever means necessary just to get this season rolling. That might be some concession that they have to give up on the side of the league.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if it's worth it to start early and have these stars sit out multiple games, or if starting later and then going beyond or to the Olympics, and if you're able to stretch out those games a little more and the stars don't sit out. I don't know what that fiscal impact is or how that's even measured.
Well, with media rights, it's not. The star sitting is more of a fan thing. You're not getting. Yeah, so that really kind of still satisfies that. And I don't know, man. Like they need to relax it. I don't know if we'll see more stars sit out that aren't named LeBron James. And honestly, he does that anyway. I don't even know if Kawhi and Paul George are going to do it as much this season after what we saw last season. I think that there's kind of this whole contingent that's like, well, wait a minute. Like, sure, you'll be fresh in the playoffs, but if you don't have any team synergy and y'all can't play together as a team because you haven't played the season, which his intention is to get you ready for the playoffs, then what was the fucking point anyway? So, I mean, I don't know. Like, I think we'll see a lot more stars try to play on these kind of new teams. If we see even more trades and more like, the 76ers are not going to be this team next season. They're going to be a wholly different team. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. It's impossible to predict, but I don't have like a hard stance on anything. I will say if December 22nd is the date, I'm not going to be like, this is horrible. The players deserve better for, all the reasons that I think we discussed. But ultimately, like they'll get to the right conclusion. I think they usually do.
Hey, man, LeBron set 4 games this year. Direct that energy at Kawhi.
but LeBron plays like he minute manages. He's very smart with it. I'm not talking shit about it. He's always been extremely smart about how he manages his body throughout the season. And I think that he played a lot of first halves. And, honestly, the Lakers were just so good that he didn't have to play a lot of second halves in terms of regular season basketball. So props to him. It wasn't a knock. But Kawhi and Paul George, that's a knock because we saw them flame the fuck out.
That was hot on the trigger, Mace. That was quick research there, man.
I saw him. I saw him with the phone lighting up his face, and I was like, "All right, well, what do we got here?" I was like, "I'll talk for a little extra longer to let him finish his research."
Yeah, he zoned in, like plugged in really quickly on that.
Hey,
He's
no
like
slander.
in the Matrix, like, "I need to learn Tai Chi," and he's like, all right. So, do we have any more comments about the season schedule? And if not, we can move to our top 3 pick.
I do want to give a shout out to Jeffrey Cruz, who followed us on the Barn Burner YouTube channel this past week. So shout out to you, Jeffrey. You asked for it. There you go, man. We appreciate you and hope you enjoy this show and the shout out.
Jeffrey, shout out to you, man. Thanks for listening. We appreciate you taking the time to check us out, and hopefully you can tell other people about it as well.
All right, let's get into this draft.
All right, so here's the rules. We're going to draft. There's 3 of us on the show. We're going to draft the top 3 picks, of which there's been a lot of discussion about who's going there. If any of the consensus top 3 guys are actually going to go there, we are going to draft as the actual teams that are at the 1, 2, and 3 spot. In this case, Minnesota, Golden State, then the Hornets at number 3. We're going to select the draft order by a random number generator. So please, on the show live right now, Mason, pick a number between 1 and 10.
6.
Zach.
5.
And I'm going to pick 10. I'm hitting generate now. It is 3. So Zach, you were at 5, I believe.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Zach picks first. Mason picks second.
Oof.
I pick third. Zach, you are now sitting with the Minnesota Timberwolves GM. You have on your roster Karl Anthony Towns, D'Lo are the top 2 pieces probably. You got Malik Beasley. You got Malik Beasley's weed dealer. You've got Jared Culver and Naz Reid or some other names. What are you doing with the number 1 overall pick if you're the Minnesota Timberwolves?
Dang, I was really hoping not to have to go first. That's like a lot of pressure. So,
and that's honestly, before you pick, that's kind of the rub here is like that. I mean, it's a lot of pressure because this is a tough draft.
Based off my gut right there, it would say to trade the freaking thing so I don't have to make the pick. But in the spirit of the exercise, I think that let's pull up a big board, give it another little peruse. So we got Karl Anthony Towns. So James Wiseman, that's pretty redundant. I don't see a need unless you're automatically got a buyer for him to pick up Wiseman. That's a tough hang there. As far as primary ball handlers, we got D'Lo, and we also have Culver, who handles a lot of those duties as well. So you're pretty good there. I'm thinking wing scorer is probably, imagine that, a wing scorer, a team needing another wing
No one
scorer.
needs those. Dude, you have Malik Beasley. You don't need wing scorer.
Man, you can always use more.
That's what Malik said.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, all that analysis said, who are you selecting?
So I'm going to go with, even though he made some strange comments this week, I don't know if you saw, he was interviewed, this gentleman, and he said that he has been living in a pandemic his whole life, or he was born into a pandemic because he's always trying to get better. Anthony Edwards, shooting guard out of Georgia, is who I'm going to pick number 1 overall.
What do you like out of Anthony Edwards, and what do you dislike? I will say his comments could be perceived as being very wise. I wonder what what he meant. I've been living in a pandemic my whole life, man. Hits blunt once is like some shit I could definitely say. Not that I'm wise, but I could see it coming out of my mouth. What do you like about that pick if you're the Minnesota Timberwolves?
So first, I've been able to have eyes on him more so than a lot of the guys. I wasn't able to make the trips overseas to scout some of this other talent.
Backdoor cut budget's not great. Our scouting budget,
the backdoor cut and the Timberwolves budget was just down this year. The pandemic really hit our bottom line pretty heavy. But Edwards, he has lightning in a bottle potential from a scoring ability. He can shoot from deep. He's big guy, so he can bully his way when needed. Some concerns are he seems to just completely check out sometimes. So keeping him on track and focused could be an issue, but we'll we're going to take the risk here and go with him.
All right. I think that's some reasoned analysis. We'll see what happens on draft night. Mason, you're sitting at number 2. You're the Golden State Warriors, and you were Bob Myers, perhaps the most handsome GM in the league. You have Steph, Clay coming off injuries on your roster as well. You have Draymond Green as well. The big three still there, getting a little older, but they're still there. Then you've also got Andrew Wiggins on the wing. You've got a lot of max contracts on your books right now. And you've got some pieces around that, but that's the bulk of your money and the bulk of your roster. What are you doing at number 2?
Speaking of Andrew Wiggins, Timberwolves fans have got to be rolling over in their grave with Anthony Edwards and Andrew Wiggins comparisons. You know, these wing scorers who show up 20% of the time and can't actually score. Like, Jesus Christ. Of all years for the T-Wolves to have the number 1 pick, not very exciting at the top of the draft. And Zach, I'm glad you didn't pick James Wiseman, who a lot of people have number 1 on their big board, because according to Brian Windhorst, James Wiseman does not want to come to Minnesota because Karl Towns is there. From what I understand, Wiseman doesn't even want to do anything with the Wolves. And I mean, does anybody want to do anything with the Wolves except maybe Devin Booker to go play with D'Lo and Cat? But anyways, back to the second pick for the Warriors. If the Warriors keep this pick, I don't think, LaMelo Ball really makes sense. Maybe you could make the case that he gets to come in and play behind some great guards and kind of learn how to play in the NBA and how his game can fit without having a whole lot of pressure.
Wait a minute. Yeah, hang on. What if, you slot LaMelo at number 1 and then you have Steph and Clay off ball? We haven't seen Steph be off ball in a while. He's a little older. Maybe take the ball out of his hands a little bit and just let LaMelo make those flashy passes he's known for. Play Wiggins at the 4, Draymond at the 5, just sell in on small ball. What is there a case there? I mean, that to have LaMelo not have to do too much and be able to throw his patented hook passes to 2 of the greatest shooters perhaps to ever play the game.
If you want to make that case, I'm sure there is a case there, but I ain't making it. And
you're Bob Myers.
And that team's giving up, at least 130 points a game. So I can't do it. But as much as I like Onyeka Okongwu, I'm going to go with James Wiseman for the just unlimited upside he possesses. I think it's a good fit, shot blocking, rim running, hopefully defensive-minded big man that we can kind of mold into, and not going to be needed to play in the clutch anyways because we're going to move Draymond to center. It's kind of a project. Maybe he has a good season and we trade him for more pieces that help us win immediately. Or maybe he is the 5-man of the future for this team and kind of helps us transition from the Splash Bros into the future when it's that time in 6-7 years.
So I think it's probably we're all based in Memphis and we are Memphis grads. So we watched Wiseman in a limited amount of games for Memphis, but watched him in high school and kind of followed his career as well, probably more so than the average NBA fans. I think this is probably best case scenario for him in terms of where to be drafted. And I think he's a kid that is very pending. His career is very much pending where he gets drafted and the players he gets to go around, the culture he goes into. There's maybe none better than Golden State's culture in terms of the money they're willing to spend, the facilities, the players they have around. I think he could do well. And I think if he has a ceiling, he'll reach it at Golden State. So I honestly have to imagine he's probably wanting to go there as well. If you shot him with true serum and asked him, he'd say that'd be awesome. He's already sort of gaming the system.
It seems to be the best fit out of the top 3 teams who are selecting based on the top, 5 on most big boards.
Sure. I am at number 3. I am the Hornets, which is a really, really tough situation to be in because the Hornets have a lot of interesting guys in their roster, but they just have no stars. They have no one that they could put on a banner. They have no one that could put an ass in a seat specifically for that player. They have Scary Terry, of course. They signed on a nearly max deal from Boston. Terry Rozier, PJ Washington, a nice rookie out of Kentucky who showed a lot of great signs of life last season. Devontae Graham, of course, which I think was many of our most improved players, went to a nearly 20-point per game scorer this year and really showed ability to put the ball in the bucket. And then, Malik Monk I have on here too. For some reason, I haven't forgotten about him deep in the rotation. I think a little bit miscast on this team. I think he could still find a life somewhere, even though he's not the type of guy I would typically really support. But this is a team that needs somebody to hang a banner for. They need some life. They need some buzz, no pun intended, in the arena. And with that, I think they need to select LaMelo Ball with the number 3rd overall pick. I think if LaMelo fell to them at 3, they would be ecstatic. I think he immediately brings the ball train to Charlotte, which for better or for worse, the team could use a jolt of electricity. And I think LaMelo, he might have 10 assists in a game, but also 10 turnovers. But all of those 10 assists will be highlight reels. 6'7" point guard, of course, played some ball internationally, and then is the little brother of Lonzo Ball. The top 3 we just selected is basically the top 3 in every single big board in some order.
Yes.
And it seems to be that most of the consensus is that LaMelo probably has the highest ceiling in terms of he could truly be like a franchise all-star point guard, or he could be awful. Anthony Edwards is going to be a guy that's always going to score, but the question is he Josh Smith or Andrew Wiggins, or is he, more of like a T-Mac, or just a more of a bruising, like Devin Booker, not Devin Booker in terms of bruising, but like a legitimate all-star. And then Wiseman could be a franchise center, but that's kind of in a league where it's not as much of a thing. And the question is, will he ever be able to shoot jump shots to the level that he needs to be in order to be a franchise center and all-star? So I think they would probably be stupid to not select LaMelo if he dropped there to them. But people are talking about Melo going to 7, 8, 9 because he's kind of immature. His dad, he's been basically a celebrity since he was 12, and I can't fathom the effect that has on someone. But just giving him the keys there in Charlotte, it's something they need to do. They just cannot miss here. And if you don't draft LaMelo and draft a safer pick like a Halliburton, or they go down and draft that center out of USC that you mentioned, Mason. Or the kid out of Dayton. I just don't know if that's the smart pick. What do you guys think of LaMelo in Charlotte?
Yeah, I think your comment about needing a jolt of life just to kind of help them be a relevant franchise, because how often are you talking about Charlotte in literally any conversation about the NBA? Unless you're
doing because we're Memphis fans. It's not like we're, so but I do feel like Charlotte's a team where I can kind of talk a little bit of shit.
No one was talking about us until we got Ja. Let's be honest. Even when Jaren Jackson, people were not outside of Memphis that excited about him. They would just, point out he fouls a ton, doesn't stay on the court enough. He's a solid player, but he's not electrifying like Morant is. And that's
Wob called him Anthony Davis Light or something. Remember that? Wob called him Anthony Davis Jr. after he had 37 on the Nets. I remember that because we never get any shine. But anyway, sorry, Zach.
No, yeah, but so Ball having that shine factor. There's something there to be said about it. And don't we want to see MJ and was it Daddy Ball?
LeVar, the one-on-one matchup. We've all been waiting for it.
That happens on draft night, right? There's that pay-per-view later.
It almost right, just that night they throw to on ESPN. They throw directly to Charlotte and just have LeVar fully playing MJ one-on-one. It'd be fucking amazing.
Then MJ beats him, and LeVar has to go to Moron Mountain for the next 7 years for the extent of LaMelo's contract.
Until John Morant heads up Helm's Space Jam 3, written and directed by me.
And then LeVar has his chance to come back. So.
I don't know what to make of this kid. Everyone, I've seen the YouTube highlights of him over there. Where was he? New Zealand or Australia? One of those countries.
Australia.
Yeah. And yes, you get it. He has all the tools. He's tall as hell. He can, it's it really, if he ever puts a consistent jumper together, who knows? And we could all be laughing at ourselves forever thinking that he was going to be a bust in 5 years. That's the nature of the draft. And it's that's what's so fucking annoying about it. I can't imagine being a GM with the high pick in this draft, because you have so many opportunities. What do you think the likely outcome is if you think that these guys are trading down? You think Golden State trades the pick? What do you think is going to happen, Mason?
I like Kevin Connor's idea of Minnesota trading down for Charlotte. So Charlotte jumps to number 1 and then also gives Minnesota a future first. And I could see them taking Wiseman. with the number 1 overall pick.
You think Charlotte's targeting Wiseman to that level? Like would pick him over LaMelo at number 1?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, but Charlotte, it's just like you got a little bit of everything, but you also need everything. Like you have no superstars.
You have backups for every position, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like, hey, can we trade 3 if we're Charlotte for like 9 and 16 or whatever from the Celtics? So the Celtics maybe get their guy, and then we can just acquire more talent for our team. Because I mean, although they overperformed last year, they're not set up for long-term success currently. So in Minnesota, I mean, you're not excited about taking Anthony Edwards with that crew, but then who are you excited about taking with that crew? And the one guy you were excited about just came up in the news for all the wrong reasons. Acquiring Malik Beasley was a big deal for them and was supposed to be a scorer next to D'Angelo. So I don't really see the path forward for Minnesota, until it's time to trade Cat, and then you just start all over again.
Yeah, they're like the team that I would be most sad to have to still be rich. Like they have riches, they have 2 all-stars in their team. They have a number 1 overall pick, and all their all-stars are both like under 25. I mean, that's like theoretically
they should be super excited about that.
It is what we would hope to, is what we hope is us in next year, the next. And it'd really, really be awful. I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be a fucking fray, though. I think there's going to be a lot of trades. There's going to be a lot of action on draft night. Should be really fun to watch. So I'm looking forward to watching it. I watch it every year, but everyone's comparing this 2013 Anthony Bennett number 1 overall pick. Like, I mean, I could see some crazy ass shit like that happening. But the point is, I don't think that anybody likes any of these guys so much where they're willing to trade up to these top 3 positions to get them, kind of deal. Yeah. So there might not be that sort of stuff going on. Maybe Charlotte does to get up to 1 to take Wiseman. But also maybe they're thinking he makes it down to them at 3. So I don't know. Of course, the Warriors and Minnesota are going to do everything in their power to try to say they're going to take whoever they think the people below them want. And in fact, the Warriors have said they like everybody. That's been the joke, is that they've written articles about every single guy.
At this point, it's all posturing. And I mean, but there's so much uncertainty. Like there's some teams who like Okongwu from USC more than Wiseman. There's some, like Kevin O'Connor has Killian Hayes as his number 1 on his big board, who is just a wild card that is from Germany, I believe, and not a lot of people know. France, okay, and no one really knows anything about how his game's going to translate, but he could be the best player. You got Halliburton, you got the Kentucky guys, Obi Toppin, who was the best player in college basketball probably last year. It seems like those in like the 4 through 15 range are the ones who are kind of like, yeah, we can take our pick because there's a lot of guys right here who could pan out. And a lot of the draft experts seem to think the middle and late first round is a strength of this draft, and maybe better so than the previous few drafts in that range. Is just lacking the star power. So maybe we see teams just say, hey, I want Devin Vassell at number 2. Maybe that's what the Warriors do, like a lengthy wing guy. Who the fuck knows what's going to happen? It should be a lot of fun. And with free agency happening back to back, I mean, it's just going to be fireworks, baby. And you hope that the NBA has the same appeal as it does when this is happening on July 1st versus in the middle of the NFL and college football season.
What day? The 18th. What day is that of the week?
I don't know off the top of my head.
November 18th is a Wednesday, so there's no football.
Obviously purposeful, obviously. Try to catch ESPN, have the show. I don't know if they'll probably do the video drafts. Obviously won't have like the Madison Square Garden draft that's become famous. So it'll be different, but NFL managed to make that somewhat fun. But that was back when none of us had shit to do. So now we're just all doing whatever, and everyone's getting Corona again. Shout out Second Wave.
Yeah, we might be closed down by then. Who knows?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right. Does anyone else have any other NBA talk before we end the show? We appreciate you listening to the Backdoor Cut. Any parting thoughts, anybody?
Don't get caught selling drugs.
Second that.
Don't get caught selling drugs. Shout out Dash Radio, Nothing But Net channel. And check us out. We're the Grizzly Show on your Nothing But Net channel. And thanks for listening, everyone.